I began this work to re-engage with my art practice after having a very difficult year, and recognised that I was in a process of grief about war and how it affected my personal life. And it's easy for me to grieve for other people, but it wasn't so easy to look at the personal cost to bearing the weight of a history that comes from the German side of the war. And in order to re-engage with my art, I decided I'm going to do 100 roses. And I've always been interested in flowers, but I was influenced very much by Ross Bleckner's work and a few other artists who deal with the grief of war or the grief of calamity. Ross Bleckner's work deals with the AIDS crisis in the 90s, and I think of Anselm Kiefer and the use of repetition and a simple image to express complicated emotions. So I was inspired by that. But I'm very interested in how history relates to our present day. So I took photos of roses from my neighbourhood and chose to make portraits of them in an expressive manner. And I decided to do roses deliberately because we often think of roses as this perfect flower, this flower that expresses the perfection of being human and the perfection of love. And I wanted to make these roses as I think the human condition actually is, which is a broken condition, which is very complicated. In people's lives, we have good and bad and sickness and health and tragedy and joy mixed in together. And somehow through it all, we manage to find love within it. And so when I began to do these roses, they became very ambiguous. And I've been looking at the bombing campaigns of World War II, and I started to recognise these roses as looking like plumes of bombs as seen from above. When you see aerial photos of explosions. And then I started to see them as little landscapes that have opened up somehow through the break in the clouds. And it's very unusual to do roses fully face on, and so they become like voices or wounds or hearts that are hurting and melting. And finally, for me, each of these have become like pools of grief, and somehow the tears of grief have landed on this darkness and have dispersed the darkness. And Nick Cave recently suffered a great loss, and he wrote that grief is really love. And I feel that that very much inspires the ideas behind this work.